I just want to welcome everyone. My name is Rebecca Castano. I lead our Emerging Leaders Society, which is a group of young professionals who get together, partner with United Way to make an impact in our community. And we do this through personal and professional development, fundraisers, volunteer experiences. We have a lot of fun together, but we're all very passionate about making a difference. And I'm going to throw some information about our with our website and social in the chat if you want to learn how to join and get more involved. A huge part of making an impact is developing as leaders. And I always love the quote, and I don't know who quoted it, so forgive me, but a smart person learns from their mistakes and a wise person learns from another's mistakes. And I believe that is true for mistakes as well as successes. And really that sort of sets the stage for Lunch with a Leader. ELS tries to operate around three key principles: to listen, to educate, and innovate. And it's in that order for a reason. In Lunch with a Leader, we're here to listen and to learn. And a huge part of learning is asking questions. So we really try to create an environment where not only are we listening just to our leaders like share with us their experience, but we're asking them questions and then we're listening to their answers and educating ourselves and learning from one another. It's just a very rich experience. So we really encourage you to be interactive in this space. I want to say a little bit about, I'm going to introduce you and turn it over to our moderator. So ELS has a signature event called the ELS Case Competition. And this is about bringing teams of emerging leaders together and pairing them with an executive leader in our community who is a mentor. And then we give them a real community issue and challenge them to develop and pitch solutions in front of a panel of judges in multiple rounds. It's like Shark Tank, but we're really solving real issues in our local community. And it's super intense. It's a boot camp kind of experience and requires a significant time commitment. And Hartford HealthCare signed up a team of awesome emerging leaders who participated this year. I just learned, so I want to shout out to Hima, Victoria, Veronica, Claudia, and Maria Shimer, who is our moderator for today. And I just learned while we were waiting that she has an 18-month-old child. So on top of all that she is doing, she took on this huge effort, and we are incredibly grateful. They came up with amazing ideas. So Maria has been with Hartford HealthCare for 8.5 years and is the director of neuroscience specialty programs at the Ayer Neuroscience Institute. When I asked her for her title, my response was, "What in the world?" It's quite remarkable. So Maria, thank you so much for moderating. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I am honored to have the opportunity to be here with all of you today. When Rebecca approached me to participate in this discussion with Bimal, I really couldn't turn it down. I will introduce Bimal in a moment, but I have the utmost respect for his leadership. So this is a really unique opportunity for everybody here to get a chance to speak with him. Before introducing Bimal, I just wanted to go through some housekeeping items as your moderator. So we would just like to remind you to please keep yourselves on mute unless you are asking a question, and it looks like everybody's doing great with that. If you would not mind updating your name and title and your organization in the chat, that will just help everybody introduce themselves and get to know who we are all in the room with today. For those of you that are off camera, if it's possible for you to do so, we'd love to see you on screen. We want this to be interactive and engaging and give Bimal our full attention. So if possible to join us off camera, on camera, we would really appreciate that. I'll be opening up the session today with some questions for Bimal just to get the conversation started. And then we would welcome any one of you to raise your virtual hand. You can do that by clicking on the reactions button at the bottom of the Zoom page and clicking on raise hand. That way, myself and Rebecca can see who has a question. Your hand will stay raised until we're able to get to you. but we would love for you to verbally ask your question again and engage with us. If you do need to use the chat for a question or for any reason, of course, that's still an option, and we'll do our best to monitor that as well. So without further ado, I will be introducing Bimal Patel. Bimal is our president of the Hartford region and Northwest region of Hartford HealthCare. He is a progressive healthcare executive with nearly 30 years of experience leading meaningful transformation in the healthcare space. And since becoming president of Hartford Hospital in 2017, Bimal has helped lead the 867-bed hospital to become a top tertiary care center in New England. He has done outstanding work. Prior to his current role, he served as president of Hartford HealthCare's East Region, where he oversaw a 20% financial turnaround for one of the region's community hospitals in less than 2 years. I also want to note, since we are here with United Way, that Bimal prioritizes community involvement. He's been extremely active with United Way. He served as United Way's 2018 Community Campaign Chair and was the recipient in 2021 of United Way's Community Service Award, which is the organization's highest volunteer honor. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to today's Lunch with a Leader speaker, Bimal Patel. Bimal, again, welcome and thank you so much for prioritizing this time in light of everything going on right now. Before we dive into questions, I'd just like to give you a moment to say any initial comments or greetings that you may have.
Thank you, Maria, and it's good to see you as well. The COVID times have not allowed us to be in person for appropriate reasons. And that said, Zoom is our new in-person thing. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all. Some of the folks I know on this conversation today and some I don't. But the folks who I know, you are way ahead in terms of your abilities, your maturity, your readiness for the journey, professional type at least that I can see. So I just wanted to say congratulations. You're on a great track, and I'm sure you're going to do some great and amazing things. My opening comments are, I think, and maybe that's my closing comments, that I say be the change you want to be, and that's what Gandhi said. I'm sure some of you were aware of it. But when you actually think about it and practice and walk that path, I think it puts things in a real perspective. And instead of saying what others can do right, I think if we start processing and say, what can we do right? The world would be immediately in a better space and a better place. And so with that regard, I think those are sort of very basic governing principles from my end. And it's not easy. I mean, it's easy said than done. And so staying very aware of that is the one that drives me every day, whether it's the way in which I drive sometimes and the way in which I stand in a grocery store lines, or the way in which I would be here at the hospital or any healthcare settings in a professional capacity, or even be in the family room with family members. I think we need to keep those principles in mind. So that's my opening statement, just set the stage of our conversation. And I appreciate all the kind words that you shared. It moves and goes like a picture. It's pretty fast. 30 years has gone by, in a split second, it feels that many times. So enjoy the moment as you're doing it. Don't stress out on things on a day-to-day basis. I think the whole picture you had to leave rather than just the moment itself. And so I think that's another guiding thing. I wish I would have known that for my first 15 years of life, that the things I was stressing out on or was doing things in a way. So I think one advice I would give would be to just take it easy, smile, and keep moving forward. Good things would happen at the right time.
Thank you so much, Bimal. You actually already answered one of our questions about what piece of advice you would give to your 30-year-old self. So we're off to a great start. I really appreciate the opening comments. So let's begin with some of our questions. Bimal and those of you here with us today, we're all very much aware of the current situation that we're living in. It's almost that we're experiencing two crises right now, where we have an ongoing pandemic, a new variant that we're learning about, and we're experiencing surges in our hospitals. It's affecting our friends, our family members. We also are experiencing internal organizational constraints with staff shortages, burnout, confusion with protocols, you name it. It's been chaotic, to say the least. So Bimal, our question is, how are you balancing leading this organization or your regions of the organization for people that are really seeking help both internally and externally in such a great time of uncertainty? What are you really leaning on as your principles, and how are you balancing all the needs of your regions right now?
Yeah, this is definitely a turbulent time for every single one of us, and in particular our patients who are at times in an extreme difficult situation and in crisis, mental, physical, and it's just a stress that it's unfortunate. And that said, as I said, the change begins with us. And that principle, I first say, okay, am I imbalanced or not as a leader? And is my balance being impacted by the circumstances that are given to us environmentally, whether those are the disease that we are dealing with, the pandemic, the shortages of different resources that we are managing, the higher demand that we are managing. So first and foremost, starting and checking that in personally is extremely important. And then once you do that, it radiates through your teams. People will find calmness. Chaotic situations cannot normally generate good results. I think calmness in chaos is extremely important. And I think that type of way how I go about doing my work, and I encourage our team leaders to do the same. And I think you have to be true to yourself, whether that's who you are or not, but channeling the strength of all the leaders, physicians, nurses, operational leaders, financial leaders, human resources leaders, etc., in a way that it highlights their abilities and maximize their value. The second part is that there are so many subject matter experts and technical experts. And a job of a leader in my role is not to be a subject matter expert in that, but be able to see a complete picture and a step away from those pushes, pulls, the tugs, etc., and appreciate the general overarching environment that we are creating, whether it's for our staff members, our team members, or for our patients. And keeping that sort of mindset is extremely important as well. And my particular role in the organization today allows me to do that. But there were times where I needed to be subject matter expert, and I need to make sure that I play that role. So thinking about creating each role in your mind, and asking your teams to have that level of clarity as well as expectations that that's what it would take for us to be successful together, I think helps navigate the situations through. And so that's the second part. The third part, which is many of you must have heard that doing right versus being right. As you put this badge on, and if you're a president, sometimes it comes with the title and the role and the egos get in your head and heart, and you start doing things that may not make sense, or so checking that in, I think, is extremely important all the time, and recognizing that you can't be an expert into everything. You have to ask people for their opinions, what their realities are. You have to respect that and appropriately apply that, into the work, etc. So being a humble leader and very understanding leader, especially during the time of crisis, is extremely, extremely important. And I think for me personally speaking, I think it is a natural home for me, and so it wasn't a major struggle for that reason. But I couldn't be more proud and thankful for the team that is doing God's work. It is unbelievable, and I've seen it, every single day here over last 2 years almost, that we've been caring for our patients and our communities through pandemic. Being a present leader is also important. I've not worked from home in my entire last 2 years, not a single day, except the day after I got my shot. I was not feeling well, and I couldn't be, here in person. But otherwise, I have been always here, and that is also important for leaders and leadership, to be both visible, attentive, and present in time. Is also important. So I think those are some of the things that we have gone through and gone by.
That's excellent. Thank you, Bimal, for sharing those principles and reflecting on your own experience. I think hearing you say that you have not worked from home one day or other than one day is really remarkable. And it shows that you really value being visible as a leader and being present with the teams that are doing some of the hardest work they've probably done in their careers. One of the things that I remember when I first met you, you probably don't remember this, but it was 8.5 years ago during my fellowship. I did a meet and greet with you, and it always stuck with me. One of the things that you told me, that you sleep well every night, knowing that you did the best that you could that day for your patients and for your staff, that you showed up and you were the best version of yourself. And for some reason that just really stuck with me as a sometimes anxious person that doesn't sleep well at night because I'm over, thinking about all the things that I could have done differently. You could just sense your calmness as a leader and really believing your truth. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, thank you.
On to our next question, just to kind of go on to continue talking about one more question on the pandemic is, in the last 2 years, is there anything that you have learned in this experience? And you might have already, gone through that, but anything that you might have changed about how you approached a situation or the challenges that you face that have been your greatest learning as you were leading Hartford Hospital during this time? Anything that you'd like to share that you might not have already shared already?
Yeah, I think the learning is almost every day, and there are things that we adopt and evolve during pandemic in particular are also important. The things that I have learned, that we do a call with so many folks at the hospital almost every day, every other day during the peak of pandemic. So like that last month, we started this journey of ramping up, and we have about 200, 225 folks on the call. Earlier on, last year or year prior to that, in 2020, April and May, there was a thing about as a leader that we are coming at a table with a lot of answers and solutions. And the way in which pandemic was happening and moving, and our experiences and our decisions were being challenged by the pandemic, that we had to adopt and appreciate the fact that we're not here to answer a lot of questions, but we are here to learn together. We are here to evaluate things together, and we are to adapt the things and change things. What our understanding was a couple of days ago, which is different today, because of the nuances and changed circumstances. I've never seen in my lifetime, and certainly within healthcare, the things that I used to say 2 days or 5 days ago, today I'm reverting it to something else. And to settle with that type of nuance, with a track where you are thoughtful, you're deliberate, and now you're thrown in a mix where while you're thoughtful and deliberate, 3 days later, you like, is that really what I was suggesting or saying? Because this today is not how I would make that decision because of the evolving conditions around me. So one of the most important learning during the pandemic that occurred during that time was that. And you got to settle with that new norms for yourself in your leadership style. And you say, oh my gosh, what happens to my credibility? This is what I said 3 days ago, and now I'm not saying that, and I'm saying something different. So that was a huge learning. But today, in this round of COVID, first and foremost thing, and if any one of you might have heard me say that, they say, we are going to make decisions today based on the facts we have today. Tomorrow or day after, we will have to decide something differently. And I don't know whether that's for sure, but be ready just in case, and don't be surprised, right? I mean, that's the opening statement. And so that quick adaptability, I think, is something that I have not seen or experienced in my lifetime that we had to do this time around. And I guess that's a pandemic impact for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we're going to switch gears with our next question here. And after this question, I'd like to invite anybody to ask their own question. So feel free to virtually raise your hand at any point here. But our next question is, Bimal, as we shared in the introduction, you've been involved with United Way yourself for a long time. And we'd like to know why you believe it's important for community to be integrated into the culture of a hospital.
United Way's mission is pretty broad. And I think it's a mother of all the non-for-profit work, so we speak, right? It's a overarching services that really is touching so many aspects of the work that individually many non-for-profits do. And so it's a wraparound nature of United Way that is super impressive. And my first exposure with United Way was when I was a pharmacy student or an intern at a hospital in Pennsylvania, almost in 1990-91 time period. And there was a form that was circulated, and it says United Way, and I'm barely 6 months into US at that point, was born and raised in India. Had no idea what that means. I have no understanding of, if somebody says, what is the sick time and PTO? I'm like, what are we talking about, right? Somebody says overtime, I had no idea. Like, this is my first job, as green as it comes. And, so that's the story. So I said, what is this form? And then somebody explained, and I don't think I had a chance to tell this story to Paula, but somebody explained that this is what United Way does. And I was like, wow, this is pretty good. And so I said, sure. So I was making $5 per hour as my salary. So I calculated that, and I said, this is how much I'm going to make. And so let me calculate as a dollars to cent to percentage and see what I can give. So since that time, United Way has been, in a very small token way, part of my paycheck giving. And I'm talking about right now, 30 years later, is still there in a small token way, right? It has never gone away. But United Way has grown in the sense, whenever I see a disaster, it's like American Red Cross, right? You hear about them, that you know they're there, you know they're supporting. And over the last few years with Paula, I was so well educated about ELS. I was so educated about the reach and the impact. And so I appreciated the fact that there is a mechanism, there is a vehicle, there's a grassroots efforts that are happening in our communities that so many folks can get benefit out of. And it's a replicating, duplicating, multiplying the positive activity that occurs in more than many ways. And I think, and that's my history with United Way. The recent histories you're very familiar with, but it's almost like I'm tripping over it into accidentally. And I'm glad that I was told what United Way was meant to the fellow who I asked 30 years ago. And I think United Way still continues to be that flagship organization.
Thank you for sharing that. We've got some great chat comments coming through to recognize you, Bimal. And Paula says you're her hero. I love that. I echo your sentiments about United Way. They have such a prominent influence in the community and have done some remarkable initiatives and really try to drive change. And through my work with the case competition, and I actually was a volunteer reader back when I moved to Hartford. So I worked with United Way as a volunteer. I just really appreciate what United Way has to offer to our communities. So definitely resonate with what you shared. At this point, we are halfway through our interview, so we'd like to make sure our guests feel heard and have an opportunity to ask Bimal questions that they may have. So if you want to take yourself on mute or again, raise your virtual hand, we will accept chat questions. Please do so now. All right, you're gonna make me work. I do have some supplemental questions. Actually, we just got one through. So Rebecca would like to know, how do you inspire your team to excel?
Listen, each leader has their own style, and it should meet, who you are. And then you have to kind of go that way. My personal style, so I'm saying, in other words, don't try to adopt it, someone else's style. You got to be you. So that's number one. And you is being very open, transparent, storytelling, encouraging, cheerleading. 95, 99% of the time, that's how I work with my team. And so there is a 1% or 2% where there will be a very focused performance related, expectations related, criteria related conversations, but other times it's more encouraging and trusting that that they will be engaged in a way, and it allows people to flourish. So if you ever had a chance to read a book, I'm trying to think of a name on a fly, Fearless Organization. It's a very quick read. I can't even tell you whether I read the entire book, but the summary of each chapter has been described really nicely. So even if you want to, before you read the book, just read the summaries of each. It's really a well-written book, but it worked for me. That the team around me, the cabinet, and I just had finished the cabinet meeting about an hour ago. The conversation was, we love to come to the cabinet meeting. And why? Is because there is a conversation, there is a laughter, there is a serious conversation, there is a analytical conversation, but we all have fun being there. And
Mm.
so when people have joy and no fear, they will be at their best. And we can create that environment as leaders where people are feeling that way. And I think to me, that's nobody wakes up in the morning and say, let me harm somebody, let me hurt somebody, let me be nasty to somebody, let me, I mean, maybe there are some people, I'm not saying that the world is 100% perfect, but 95% of the people are waking up and said, you know what, I want to do some good things. But then the structure, the processes, the experiences, all of that builds up, and then it creates the nuances of life that not really results into let me do something good today kind of thing, right? You get in the way. So our job is to really recognize that, appreciate that, and remove those things as much as we can. And as I said before, the change begins with me is one of those things, right? I don't want to be the reason for somebody's bad day. I just want to be a reason for their good day. And how do you do that? And others are also in the same boat. Nobody wants to be disappointing you. So my team would say, listen, I do well because I don't like to disappoint you. That's why I do well, right? So that's how they get inspired. Why? Because you care for me, you genuinely are a good person. Why would I want to disappoint you, right? I mean, that's what I've heard continuously in my different roles as I've grown into different professional paths. And so I think that has helped, and that's my style, and it works.
Powerful messages, Bimal. Thank you. A lot that we can take from that, I'm sure. We are getting a few questions that are coming in, and I see that we have a hand raised. So let's start with Victoria. If you want to come off mute and ask your question, now would be great.
Thank you, Maria. Hi, Bimal. I wanted to ask, as an emerging leader, and I would like to know how you keep a handle on all that you do, being a leader that leads a hospital, then also having people that you are supporting, the community that you are partnering with. So how do you keep a handle on all that you do and still be able to go to bed at night feeling that you've done the best that you can? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it takes a team. It's not just me. Certainly. So first and foremost, appreciating, recognizing that there are more people who are pulling in the same direction as I pull in. It's just one way to do that. The second part is, at some point in the career, you do appreciate that other than giving your best, you can't expect it to be 100% on everything. And so that's a human limitations. We don't have superpowers like getting everything done, and just just settling with that yourself. That you are good, you may be the best, but you're not gonna get everything done. And once you get to that personal settlement, I think that creates a calmness, so we speak. And to be honest, I think at the end of the long day, you're exhausted. So whether you like it or not, the brain shuts off and the body says, listen, I gotta go, I gotta sleep. And, and that's also true, that once you exhaust yourself, knowing that you're doing the right thing, knowing that you're doing your best thing, then I think that's also creates a peace of mind as well. Maybe this is not the time, but I think it's a more philosophical and a soul conversation with yourself to get to that place as well, because the decisions we make are not simple and easy. It has a lot more effect on people than I would even appreciate fully, in a good time or a bad time. I mean, and so settling with those to yourself also, it's also challenging. I think you got to build that muscle, so we speak, or that type of internal capabilities to deal with those situations as well.
Thank you, Bimal. Great question, Victoria. And we're hearing a lot of themes from Bimal, like showing up authentically, teamwork, the power of teamwork, and accepting our limitations as well, that we can't do everything, but we can do our best. So I really appreciate that. We have a question from Mackenzie. She says, thanks for meeting with us today. She wants to know about preventing burnout. The healthcare industry has been hit very hard. What have you done and what can we do to prevent or recognize and deal with burnout?
Yeah, this is profound. And I think the burnout, first, let me talk about why the burnout. And then we'll talk about how to manage and deal with it. And then the third will be how I manage it. So pandemic, everything we do is been overshadowed. The activities, the freedom, the choices that we make or things we plan and execute without any major disruption. Pandemic has put everything upside down. Different folks in their different stages of life have different pressure points. So if you're a young child in the school, a different pressure point. If you're a single mom, you have a different pressure point. If you you're the breadwinner of the house and you were laid off in the early cycle of pandemic, you have different pressure point. You have elderly parents, you have different pressure points. I mean, think about every which way possible this pandemic has impacted students, right? Graduating, not in-person classes. I mean, it's just very, very hard. And it's not something we deal with it every day either. These are so much nuance. So hence the pressures. At work, the disease was deadly and it still is. You're seeing the people you normally tend to help and make them go home healthy. You can't do it anymore. You're seeing high mortality. You're dealing with your own consequences of both emotional as well as physical harm, likely. You may be exposed to COVID yourself or your coworkers. So all of this has created a lot of pressures for the healthcare frontline teams, more so. And so those are the driving reasons. What we have started doing here is first create a platform to talk about burnout. That burnout is real, it can happen, and how individually we can talk about our own burnout with our trusted colleagues, neighbors, family members, and feel that we'll be supported. As a system or as a hospital, we need to create a structure and a process through which people can obtain help, create vehicles in interdepartmentally or within intradepartmentally that you can celebrate appropriately and safely, or you can cheerlead somebody appropriately and safely. So creating that type of lean on me when you need, I'll lean on you when I need. Creating that environment is extremely important. So, and bring some laughter or joy at workplace, which is, we historically have done that by sharing food or by doing a party together, which pandemic really put a stop to it. So which way we can really talk about or do the joy part or laughter part being on a Zoom, that's also important. So, figuring ways out to do that. And I think I didn't want to over embellish on this fact that why the comments came up about that this is the meeting we look forward to in the cabinet. It's because in the first 5 minutes, I was just sharing that 14th of January is when the sun tilts different way on from southern focus to the northern focus, I believe. And it has a significant, meaningful impact on the earth. And I said, this is to me is a change and how it is celebrated in the culture I grew up in. And I told a story about kite flying and just kind of walking through, and then somebody in the meanwhile Googled up and said, what is kite flying in Uttarayan? And they saw pictures and they were sharing. There's a lot of laughter at the cabinet meeting started the first 5 minutes, just to set the stage that today is the day when we have the highest number of COVID patients in the hospital. The team, the physician leader, the nurse leader, the operations leaders, their shoulders are down or up, depending upon, however you see it, down or up, but it's tense right now, right? And how do you bring some human factor into it? All of a sudden, people get better. And then that's laying the groundwork for a better work, better teamwork, better support. So we got to do that. We got to be that way, right? I mean, as a leader, you got to be vulnerable. You got to tell stories that, people will say, oh my God, you're telling this story, I can't believe, right? You got to be that person who would become then ultimately the glue and take people with you. So dealing with personally, I think you got to be in tune with it. I share this philosophy with a couple things. Look for something today. I urge you to give yourself 15, 20 minutes, half an hour today to yourself to say, what is that one thing that I look forward to today that pandemic cannot take away? Okay, just think about that. So for me, here's the example. Walking my dog named Pen, which Paula, and on our street with shelled peanuts in my pocket. That's my day. Pandemic has not touched that, right? So I will call my neighbor David, or he will call me. And here we go, David, Bimal, and Pen are walking on the street, and I'm eating my shelled peanuts. That part, and I tell this story to a lot of people. So, and it's embarrassing, like eating peanuts on the street and you're opening up. But yeah, that's my time, right? That's me. It relaxes me. That's what I look forward to. And if I don't have peanuts that day, David would say, Bimo, why don't you have peanuts today? Right? I mean, so that to me is what we need to create every day, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Doesn't matter what time, right? You can go home 9 o'clock and still do it. By the way, that's what I was doing last night at 9 o'clock, walking on my street eating peanuts. And the second part you have to look forward to, which is a week out or 15 days out, a little more than just eating peanuts, right? It's a little more engaging to say, hey, listen, I would do a takeout and eat at home if it's the middle of a pandemic, or I like to go out and have a meal with somebody, or how about we rent a movie or we watch a movie on something bigger that you look forward to. So assign yourself something more, which again, prepare in a way that pandemic can't take away. Historically, like everybody else and me as well, did every 6 months we said we're going to go take a vacation for 3 to 5 days or a week, right? And that's where we hung our head on to say, okay, I need a vacation to do something. But guess what? Pandemic is going to take that away. We don't know. So why we give control to pandemic while we are the decision makers, right, for ourselves? So I had to figure out what my immediate and a short-term joyful moment that I can look forward to is, and I really trigger towards that. So, or work towards that. So just think from that perspective to how to deal with this nuance. There are a lot of uncertainties long-term. I'm not gonna, sit here and worry about those. We can plan for it, but we're not gonna sit and worry about it. So managing your own stress level is, I think, extremely important. Now that's, for me, it works. But for a physician or a nurse who is on the bedside, may not have the same pressure points that I do. So they have to figure their whatever works for them out. So I urge everybody, and I talk about this, that you have to figure whatever that is that you can manage and control, that it's not in the hands of your supervisor, your family member, a pandemic, figure that out. Let's do it, and then get back into it with the better health and body and a mind. So I hope that answers long-winded way, but about different things that I'm doing and different things I encourage people to do.
I think that absolutely answered the question and answered it well. I love the personal connections that you're making with your own story, and the recognizing the importance of joy and laughter. Because I think often in the workplace, especially at hospital system, not really finding it appropriate to bring up something funny or, an experience that might make people laugh. But it's important that we remember that we all have lives outside of, this experience that we're seeing. So I really appreciate that. We have a question from Allison. She says, agility and comfort with nuance are such important skills to groove. What leadership behaviors do you want to keep from this COVID experience?
Yeah, it's a good, very, very good question. So we have actually, it's interesting. Hartford HealthCare has how Hartford HealthCare works. There are 10 principles that we govern ourselves by. And I must say that those 10 governing principles, once they were introduced to Hartford HealthCare and practicing, nearly 70, 80% of the time. I can't say I've always practiced 100% of the time because, I'm not that perfect. But saying that, I think has helped me personally and professionally both. So the governing by those principles, and I don't know whether that's available to anybody's screen easily to share, but being in the moment, right? Be present, respect separate realities. The ones that I actually spend more time on these days is about coaching and mentoring. So I spend a lot of time in doing that. But there are 10 governing things that we have adopted at Hartford HealthCare is extremely helpful. So as a young and up and comer, some of you joined Hartford HealthCare, please take them seriously. I think I wish I had learned that when I was at your age, coming out of college, and not wasted my 10, 15 years in being frustrated or being anxious about things, but have adopted that early on. So, that's one thing that I would advise. And I think that has helped certainly me, even in my current journey.
Thank you. I did attempt to quickly pull up the leadership behaviors, but I couldn't find them on hand. So we will send that out to everybody afterwards, because the Hartford HealthCare leadership behaviors are great principles to live by. And everybody goes through the training here at Hartford HealthCare, and it's you can feel it in the culture. So I'm glad that you referenced that, Bimal. One more question before we lead to our closing comments. We wanted to know, who is your most meaningful mentor or your biggest influencer?
My grandfather. It's a long story, and I grew up with him for 21 years in the same household. My parents and my grandparents lived together, 4 of them, and me and my younger brother, so 6 of us under one roof. And grandparents do have a unique way with their years of experience and wisdom. And parents are more charged with, with the pressures of life, right? So me as a parent may be very different than me as a grandparent. It's just how evolution occurs. I was blessed with a grandfather who had given his life for the work that he thought was needed for the time and the community that he was serving. And he didn't, even though he had a capacity to make a lot of wealth or money, he focused on people's care. And he made less money than my grandmother, who was a teacher, elementary teacher. My grandfather was an attorney, but his cause to serve the underserved, underrepresented population, that's where he spent his time in. And himself, he grew out of poverty, son of a farmer and, 5 siblings. He left the town at age, or when he was in 7th grade, for higher education, and lived away from the house in a city educating himself and paying himself by tutoring. He was a very smart man. And so when I look at that, um, it's not that because of those reasons I respect him, but because out of he broke almost every, or he pushed almost every boundaries of our societal norms and created the influence on his family. And I'm the first, his grandson, to a point where we also do the same thing. Like if grandfather in 1950 can do this in India, why can't I do that in 2020 in United States, right? That's about what comes in my mind. And so the pushing that, and like, it's just a very profound experience. And both from intellectual perspective, both from social responsibility, from the way in which he lived his life to, and let me just be very clear. He had flaws. Okay. He had flaws. Every man has a flaw. Don't think that there is a perfect situation for anybody, including myself. So, but you gotta, he would say, what are his flaws, right? Know what your flaws are. Share that with people, that this is where your shortcomings. Here's where you are better. And he never preached as much. I mean, he just lived his life, and I just absorbed everything just being there. And so he passed away in 1999, almost 22, 23 years ago. And I mean, I still, think about him and the influence that he had on me and my deeper self that I think I've created while he was there. But more importantly, after his passing, I had more chance to reflect on his life and really, and so I wish he was here today, where I can actually tell him, hey, that this is his creation. So that's what I drive my energy from and my inspiration from.
Thank you so much for sharing. He sounds like a wonderful and inspiring man, and we can see how influential he was to you, Bimal. Allison said it well in the chat. May his memory be a blessing. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
In our last minute here, as we close today, I was just looking at the chat too. Victoria sent the leadership behaviors in a screenshot, and Rebecca can also send an official version to everyone's email. So thank you. In our last couple minutes as we close, Bimal, we wanted to see, what advice would you like all of us to walk away with from this conversation? You shared so many amazing tips with us, so many learnings, your personal experiences. Is there one piece of advice you'd like us all to walk away with today?
Yeah, I think smile. That makes a lot of things better. And that's one piece of advice. And when you smile, your body reacts, your muscle don't tense up as much. And, so just keep smiling. I think life is beautiful as much as we want to make it beautiful. So, and that doesn't mean everything is, in a nirvana setting, but nonetheless, we can create one. And certainly we can create inside of us by smiling. So keep smiling.
I love that. Great message for us to end with today. This has been an amazing interview. It's been a pleasure and an honor for me to have the opportunity to moderate. Bimal, hearing you talk about some of these challenging topics and your personal experiences and where you've come from, I think has inspired all of us. And just really appreciate that you have prioritized this time with a group of emerging leaders and influential people in the community here are with us too. Just in light of everything going on, it's felt and it's appreciated. So to everybody Thank you for joining us today. The questions that came in were really wonderful. We see a lot of great comments and words of thanks. If you enjoyed the conversation and the opportunity to be with ELS today, check out the website to learn more about how to get involved. Email Rebecca Castano, who is with us today as well, and follow them on social media. They have wonderful content and ways to get involved. So with that, I will see if anybody has any last minute thoughts or comments, but it looks like we are all set to leave right on time at 1. So enjoy your weekend, everybody.
Thank you and be safe out there. Thank you. Take care.
Thank
Okay,
you so
bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye.